All right, you're up.
Well, good afternoon. Today's presentation is Drones and Beyond, and I am Mike Artem, the Curriculum Director for Aerium. And on the call today with me is Glenn Ponis, who is Executive Director of Aerium and probably the most knowledgeable person I've ever met when it comes to aviation education. So let's get started by reviewing a little bit of what we're going to cover today. And we're going to be talking about drone use across industries in our region. And I think you'll be surprised to learn how integrated our region is in the drone industry. Then we'll talk about professional drone design, manufacturing, and programming, future of the drone industry, becoming a commercial drone pilot, and then how you can get involved. Now, a little bit about Aerium. Our mission is to expand PE's leadership in aviation and aerospace through collaborative partnerships. We're really looking for innovations that drive aviation and aerospace, and more importantly, in this conversation, to train the workforce that will build, fly, and maintain them. And our real focus is working on the connection between the needs of the workforce and the companies and the education and training that'll lead us there. Most of my role is building out those pathways from K-12 to college to careers. And I'm very focused on the curriculum development, but Glenn sees the picture at the 100,000 foot level and has a thorough understanding of how everything works throughout the industry. So we're going to talk to Glenn today and ask him a few questions about the drone industry and get his insights. So first up, Glenn, how are drones being used in the Southern Alleghenies region and everywhere else?
Mike, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. First of all, thank you to IU8 for hosting this and for the partnership in this. We're really excited to continue to work with IU8 as a leader in Pennsylvania, and by definition, then across the United States, because Pennsylvania has really taken a leadership role in aviation and aerospace education, which is pretty exciting. So let's talk about drones from there are several perspectives on how drones are utilized within the Southern Alleghenies. And I note and everywhere else, because what you're going to hear here, if you're not from South Central, Southwestern Pennsylvania, you may be thinking to yourself, none of this works for me. But the simple fact is that once you start hearing the data, you'll see that drones are ubiquitous. They are everywhere. They are being utilized across career fields and in just about every region in the United States. So as I think through this, one of the things that comes to mind to me in terms of how drones are being utilized is a program called Drone 814. And it is a United States Department, it was, we just finished it at the end of last month, a pilot project paid for through a US Department of Transportation SMART grant that provided a whole bunch of infrastructure within the Johnstown community to very hyper accurately see where these drones are. And what you're seeing here is DroneUp. DroneUp is a company that worked with us to do integrated 911 call dispatch. So if you live within 10 miles of downtown Johnstown, there was a chance during the May to September time or October timeframe when we were in phase one of this testing that had you called 911 to say someone's having a heart attack, or they are having, or they're bleeding, or they are having an anaphylactic shock, or they're having an overdose. Drone would take off and actually deliver this box that contained all of that while you were on the call with 911 with the dispatchers. They would walk you through how you would utilize all of this, and all of that would get to you before even the ambulance arrives. The idea being that we can utilize drones as a tool for first responders and emergency services to deliver needed care. This will work really well in rural areas, especially when it could take 20, 30, 40 minutes for a vehicle to reach a place that a drone can get to in 5 to 10 minutes. This is just one example of how drones are being utilized in the Southern Alleghenies region. So think of this as first responders and professional drone pilots utilizing drones as a tool to deliver 911. And if you think beyond that, think of the opportunity for these drones to be able to fly between hospitals. And let's say a hospital is out of a specific blood type. 50 miles away, there is another hospital that can loan them. that drone can take off and in a matter of 15 to 20 minutes deliver that life saving blood product when it might take an hour, 2 hours to get there otherwise. So just in that one capacity alone, the idea of driving drones for for 911 dispatch, we can see how drones become a key player in any community. And that's not the only way that that's happening. So I have some pictures up here to sort of call out some of these. So if we go from the bottom right, you're seeing there are tower inspections, and you're seeing the same thing middle left, cell towers. So the idea here is that drones are being utilized by engineers and inspectors to inspect all kinds of things, whether it be facilities, um, whether it be towered facilities, whether it be pipelines. So if you look at that bottom center there, that's very classic of what we would see in southwestern and southern Pennsylvania with the fracking industry, where the fracking industry has miles and miles of pipeline, and there are drone pilots that work for the fracking industry, and they are flying these pipelines and ensuring that there are no leaks and that the security is tight. If you look at the bottom left, that's an agricultural drone. And what it's doing is it's actually spraying herbicide, pesticide, and other materials on the crops. But what it's done before that, it has actually analyzed those crops to determine what those crops need and don't need. And it actually remembers all of that and goes and sprays only what needs to be sprayed in the areas that it needs to be sprayed. Now, is that person a drone pilot, or is that person an agricultural specialist? The answer is they are an agricultural specialist that's using drones as a tool. So I don't care what you look at on the screen, whether it's those firefighters in the middle of the screen, whether it's the lifeguards on the right, and on the top when we look at police as first responders, or even we look into military drones. And so what you're seeing in the top left is an example of a large form factor drone that's used in the military. Drones are what we say as ubiquitous within career fields. So if we were to ask where are drones used, I think the better question is the shorter list is where are drones not being used. So I don't care whether it's first responder, construction, architecture, esports, right? So for my kids out there who love FPV drone racing, esports is an industry. So is geology, insurance, video production, sports broadcasting, real estate, delivery services, and of course, military. So, so Mike, simply put, all of these industries are in southwestern Pennsylvania and southern Pennsylvania. All of these industries are using drones right here. And I'm not saying anything that is not true anywhere else in the United States.
Absolutely true, Glenn. And we're finding this as I work with colleges across the state, they are incorporating drone certifications and programs into their curriculum, not for a specific drone pilot course, but be integrated with all the programs that they are teaching. And one of the leaders in that actually is right in our backyard. Mount Aloysius has instituted the USI certifications for drones throughout their entire set of programs. So it is something that is a tool that we're going to be seeing used in all industries, no matter what you're studying.
Absolutely.
So let's talk now about the kinds of careers that are available for people that want to make drones their whole career, not necessarily someone who's using it as a tool, but someone who wants to make a career out of drones. What would they be doing?
Another great question. Glad you asked me this. So to everyone who's listening, I'd like you to think about this as one of two ways. Wouldn't it be interesting to ask this question a little bit differently? What kinds of careers are going to be available for people who want to make screwdrivers their entire career, or who want, right? And if we were to ask that question, we would say, well, you would probably be in a manufacturing facility, right? And you'd be an engineer who'd be designing the manufacturing tools that stamp out the components of the screwdrivers, and you'd have quality control. You'd have the whole business side of it. And so when we turn out a tool, there is an entire business and an industry behind the creation, the design of that tool, the manufacturing of the tool, the maintenance of that tool, and it's no different with drones. So when we think about the careers that are available for people who want to make drones their whole career, let's think about what a drone is built out. It is built out of high performance light parts. So we will need engineers who are material science engineers who can build with 3D printing with the latest in 3D printing technologies. We need electrical engineers who are going to design the servos and the motors that run those drones. We're going to need computer programmers because all of that stuff needs some pretty high powered technology to be able to work effectively. We're going to need optical specialists because of the sensors that these drones have to carry, whether they're infrared sensors, ultraviolet sensors, forward-looking infrared radar, you name it, all of those components go onto those. Additionally, you're going to need people who know how to maintain, to manufacture them. So we have manufacturing facilities where drones are being built, right? And we're talking about from small drones all the way up to those massive form factor drones that we saw in one of the previous screens. So essentially put, we need all the same people, the same types of people who build aircraft for a living to work in a drone career. So don't think this as the person who's working for the construction company that's utilizing drones. Think of this as the person that's working for DroneUp or the company that's manufacturing DroneUp. So we need people in all of those various career fields. And some of the ones that I didn't mention there is someone's got to sell these drones, so you need sales staff. Someone's got to manage the business, so you need MBAs, you need business people, you need accountants, you will need you'll need attorneys. So basically put, you can make career in a drone field even if you're not a pilot as a drone because if you like drones that much and you want to be around them, there is a career there's a career within drone manufacturing.
Exactly. And in some of the companies I work with, the more I learn about the drone industry, the more I realize it works much like an airline industry. So what we're going to see in the future is drones being deployed almost like aircraft, and all
Yes,
of those services that go along with that are going to apply to the drone industry too. So
absolutely.
let's move on then. Put on kind of looking down the road. I get this question a lot because this drone industry seemed to came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden we're seeing drones used in many different forms and many different form factors. Even drones that right now being tested to deliver people from place to place. So, Glenn, what do you think the future is of the drone industry?
Wow. Um, this is like grabbing a crystal ball and that's covered in about three layers of cloth and trying to see what's inside the crystal ball because it is really still the Wild West. It's kind of how we describe it, right? Drones, 8 years ago, there wasn't a single commercial drone pilot in the United States because the certificate didn't even exist, right? Today, there are 500,000 commercial drone pilots in the United States. Now, I want to put that in perspective for the students out there. So you're looking at this saying 500,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but let's change the perspective a little bit. When we look at private pilots like me who fly airplanes for fun, all the way up through the airline transport pilots that fly the big jets for the airlines. There are about 500,000 certificated pilots in the United States. Now, I fly an airplane, but I can't fly it for money because I'm not a commercial pilot. 70% of all pilots in the United States are not commercial pilots. We are just people who fly for fun or fly as part of a job that we do. And transportation is just one of the things we have to get from point A to point B. We use an airplane. Drone industry is already to the tune of 500,000 commercial drone pilots. And in the next 5 years, we anticipate that number doubling, which means 5 years from today, there will be twice as many commercial drone pilots as all crewed aircraft pilots in the United States. So when we look to the future of the drone industry, let's begin by saying to our students out there that this is perhaps one of the industries that is going to continue to grow, and we don't even know where the end of the growth is going to be because every time we've made an estimate over the last 5 years, we look at that estimate a year back and the numbers are bigger than they were when we estimated. So when we start talking about the drone industry, recognize that there's just a sheer volume. And why is that? Because more and more industries are utilizing drones on a daily basis. A construction site has to be able to get up on a daily basis and document what was done during that day. It's going to be used for quality control. So there will be more and more of these industries coming on board. The other thing that I think is going to happen here is that we're going to see drones become much more powerful. We're going to be able to see technologies like the swarm technologies, multiple drones being able to work together to solve problems. A good case in point is you saw that little drone 814 drone that we had earlier. Total weighs about 55 pounds when it takes off with the package. So we can deliver about a 6 pound package, 7 pound package with that. Imagine what would happen if we were able to put 200 drones in the air at the same time and being able to deliver. Imagine if we were able to put larger drones in the air. So there are several technologies that are really starting to play out. One of them is the idea of autonomous drones that can work together utilizing artificial intelligence to do swarm based deliveries. And for those of you who have seen the light shows, for example, the 10,000, 15,000 drone light shows that are happening. I saw one at a wedding I was at 3 weeks ago. They had a drone show. They had a drone light show at a wedding, of all things. So the industry is developing new methodologies for utilizing drones of various sizes. Now, one of the other areas, Mike, that we need to probably explore in just with just a few seconds here is the fact that these drones, you mentioned it earlier, that there are drones that can carry people, right? And so what we call these is they're a little bit different. We call them advanced air mobility vehicles. So you're seeing some examples here. These are, and so the top right is an Airbus, I believe the top left is a Skyhawk. These are examples of large form factor vertical takeoff, electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, or what we call in the aviation community EVTOL or eVTOL. Of course, aviators are like educators. We love our acronyms. So these are eVTOL aircraft. They are currently in testing in the United States, and in fact, we work with a number of AAM manufacturers, Data, Joby, Whisk, and in fact, we are writing for the first time. In fact, Mike is one of the people that's doing this. He is writing the first maintenance curriculum components for aviation maintenance on electric motors and electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. And where will be the first university in the United States to be teaching that? Right up the street from us at St. Francis University at their camp they'll actually be teaching it at the Johnstown Airport campus. So again, as we in their aviation maintenance program. So as we look to the future of drones, we have to recognize that as technology advances, there will be more and more uses for drones because there will be more and more sensor types. There will be more approved aircraft, and there will be people coming up with all kinds of designs drones and advanced air mobility. And that's cool news of living in the United States. We have this entrepreneurial spirit where these things take off, forgive my horrible pun, in ways that they don't in other countries because we have this great notion of investment and commerce. We're going to see the future move in those directions. The part about this is that if there are students out there that are sitting out there, I have this great idea for a drone, but I don't have any money to do it, and I don't know the first place to do it. Stick around for a few minutes because we have an opportunity for you to actually pitch to some of our sharks at our pitch summit coming up next spring that can get you some of that startup capital that you need to do your own inventions. So again, the future is it's hard to see the future except to know that it's not going anywhere but up.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Sorry, it's horrible.
Yes. And it is amazing how many of our local colleges are involved in drones and the ecosystems being developed around here. We mentioned Mount Aloysius already and their USI certification programs. We just mentioned St. Francis and what they're doing, partnering with Beta to develop that first type of technology and how you work on these big electric drones. And UPJ is putting in downtown a new innovation center, and one of the pieces of that innovation center is going to be drone innovation. And they're going to be working with companies that are developing and deploying drones and testing them right here in Johnstown. And one of the nice things we have at the airport is an FAA approved testing center for drones. It allows us to have these companies come in and use this area as a kind of a center for drone excellence. So we're very excited about the local opportunities that are available here.
And Mike, let's go. I didn't mean to interrupt, but let's
No,
also
go.
ensure, because one of the things that we haven't talked about is the work that we're doing. Because Mike mentioned earlier that we do two things: we do innovation, we do workforce development. On the innovation side, some of the stuff that we're doing is again supporting UPJ, as he mentioned, with these drone innovations. But there's another example, and it is a company out of Texas called Horizon Aerobotics. Horizon Aerobotics does inspections, drone-based inspections. And so one of their areas of expertise is railway and rail yard inspections. There are literally hundreds of thousands of miles, if not millions of miles, of railway across the United States. they've received a massive contract from Southern Norfolk Railroad, which is one of the largest railroads in the world, to do all of their railway and rail yard inspections using beyond visual line of sight drones being flown remotely. The amazing part about this is, where will the drone pilots be working full time once it's up and running? They will be working at Johnstown Airport, at the new Johnstown Innovation Center that we're breaking ground on. So literally, within the next year and a half to 2 years, the first 50 remote, beyond visual line of sight commercial drone pilots will be working out of Johnstown Airport and flying these drones all across the United States. And that's just one example of how we work on solution. We bring, could not bring Horizon Aerobotics, all of these other companies to Pennsylvania in general, and to the Southern Alleghenies in particular, without workforce component. Right? So it's critically important that we have students who are out there. By the way, these starting salary jobs with Horizon Aerobotics are going to be between $60,000 and $85,000 a year starting salary. The core requirement is going to be to have commercial drone pilot certificate and then be able to go through their training for their industry specific drones that they're flying. It's absolutely incredible what the future is going to hold.
And what the amazing thing about that is, when you think about it, is just the rail yard inspection alone, when it's fully running, they'll be flying 9,000 drone flights a day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And there are going to be people to be able to manage those drones in these remote operations. And that's just one example.
Yeah.
So you can see where the future of this is heading when you start using drones for inspections for all kind of infrastructure.
And the cool part, Mike, is that if you live in if you live in the south central southwestern Pennsylvania area and you want to stay there, you will have this capacity to get probably one of the highest paying starting salary jobs I could think of in the Johnstown region, and be able to actually stay in your community and make a boatload of money doing something really cool, right? And something that you're passionate about. It's a really exciting opportunity for students.
Which leads to my next question. So how do you get your drone career started?
Well, that's another great question. So for the students who are out there on this call, I'm curious about like where you are in your process, because there's a program called the FAA Trust Certificate, and the Trust Certificate is for anybody who wants to learn the fundamentals of drone flight and wants to be able to do it recreationally. Okay, so I would recommend people get started with that trust certificate. However, that doesn't get you a commercial certificate. That doesn't get you the right to fly commercially. So let's talk about commercial drone pilot certificate. Here are the requirements, and kids, listen, ladies, gentlemen, my students out there, listen very carefully. Here are the requirements. You got to be 16 years old. You got to be able to read and write English. You got to take some kind of course that teaches you the tasks to do on what's called the FAA Remote Pilot Knowledge Exam. And that is a 60-question exam. You get an hour and a half to take the exam. And so if you are 16, if you are able to read and write English, and if you can pass the 60-question exam with a 70% or higher and submit a form, they will hand you that what we call the green card up there, which is your remote pilot certificate. I have one. I went through the same process that students would have to, because I had to take that exam. I had to pass it. I had to submit my paperwork. That's literally all it takes. And the day you have that certificate, you can start making money with your drone. Now, the question becomes one of, where do you get this class, right? Where do you get these classes? And so a number of districts in South Central and Southwestern Pennsylvania that are already offering this class, or will be offering it coming up in the fall. There are other kinds of ways that individuals can get on and study. Feel free to reach out to Aerium at our email address, which is info@aerium.org, if you have any questions about it. But that's where it starts. Now, will you be ready to fly drones for a major company with these large factory drones like this? No, you won't, because there will be specialized training that you have to have. However, regardless of what career you go into, carrying that remote pilot certificate is your ticket to having a leg up versus anybody else. Imagine trying to get into the police academy, for example, and you said, I have an pilot certificate. That's an in because drones are being used by police. So you all have something that very few other people do. So that's how you go about getting it. And so email us if you have any questions about how, as an individual, you can earn your certificate. But then there's also this question of how we get schools involved, et cetera. So that at least as individuals, you can do this. It's a relatively easy process.
So, Glenn, for the stakeholders out there, for administrators and parents and teachers and so forth, how do we help students prepare for drone related careers?
Awesome question. And to wrap this up. So students, keeping in mind that we're talking about an exam that's going to require between 50 to 100 hours to study for, um, makes a lot of sense for schools to offer these types of courses. So it's a one Carnegie unit course. And for my non-educators out there, that represents 40 minutes a day for an entire year. Think of when you went to school, right? You had periods, 7 periods in a day, 8 periods in a day, 1 period a day for an entire school year, or a double class period for half a year is all it takes to prepare a student for this exam. There are lots of free curricula out there. There are some paid curricula, including Unmanned Safety Institute, that will get you credit at Mount Aloysius, as you mentioned earlier, Thaddeus Stevens College of Technology, and hopefully some other colleges as we go. So there are courses that schools can put in place that are relatively inexpensive to launch. In fact, we've worked it out on a bare bones. You can launch a drone program, and for less than $300 a student, turn out students with their remote pilot certificate. So these are easy lifts. They are so easy, in fact, that we're seeing career tech centers going in and providing those courses to automobile mechanics, to beautician students, to all of these different career fields because it is that easy a certificate to get and adds so much to students' resumes. It gives them that leg up. So for the stakeholders out there, for the teachers, for the administrators, for parents, reach out to Aerium, info@Aerium. I'll say that probably a dozen more times in the next 5 minutes. But reach out to us because if you have a school district that you'd like to promote this to, or if you are part of the school district that's looking at this going, we need to do something like this, or a career tech center, just email us. This is what we do for a living. We currently support over 50 programs in Pennsylvania and have regional collaboratives in 15 different parts of the state, and we anticipate that number of schools doubling in the next year. So you can be a key player in this by helping us do the outreach in your community and connect us with educational decision makers to see if we can't help your kids get these programs into their schools. And don't
And
forget
Glenn, before we
IUA.
go, oh
And
yeah,
don't forget
yeah.
IUA for this, right? Because within the Alleghenies region, IU8 is one of our greatest partners in this because they've taken on this leadership role to be able to say within the entire region that they are resource aggregators. So that's the great partnership that IU8 and Aerium have in terms of bringing this to all four counties that they serve, and all the schools and CTCs within that. And for those of you who are in other intermediate units or other CTCs, keep in mind we'll do the same thing with you as well.
And Glenn, before we go, I think you do have some exciting Aerium information you could share with the group.
Yes, I do. So, in addition to all of those great opportunities to get advanced credit, et cetera, through the colleges, if you're sitting out there and you are somewhere if you are a senior in high school or a college student, you can apply for one of Arium's scholarships. The window just opened on October 6th. Our applications close on January 31st. We are going to award approximately $30,000 in scholarships. So we are looking to award at least 8 different scholarships of upwards of $4,000. The amounts will vary based on what you ask for and what you need, but up to $4,000. They can be used for any aviation and aerospace career advancement, which would include accredited aviation related secondary programs like Aloysius, like IUP. We can help. We can have you apply them to that, as well as if you're interested in flight training, you can utilize them for that. So um, that application deadline, it closes on January 31st. It's not an extensive application. Highly recommend that you do that. We want to make sure that we're giving away as much of this money as possible. I don't want to leave any of it on the table. So that's the first thing. The second thing is for both students and the other stakeholders, Aerium is Aerium offers two different summits a year. We have a spring summit every year in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. That is our innovation summit. That this year coming up is May 27th and 28th. There you will see all the latest and greatest in drone and eVTOL and aircraft technologies, as well as how the Southern Alleghenies are leading the way in terms of manufacturing, et cetera. And then we have in Reading, Pennsylvania this year, coming up October 7th tonight, will be our Fall Education and Workforce Development Summit. That's going to be held in conjunction with the Aviation Council of Pennsylvania, along with the Reading Airport. 3 great days, including a day dedicated to just students at the airport, discovery flights, career fairs, tours, museum there. This is the time, if you're an educator, if you're a parent, it's time to start making sure that you've got the money in your budget to attend one or both of these and bring students. Highly, highly recommended. And by the way, that Spring Innovation Summit is where we're holding Pitch Summit 2026. So this is high school and college business ideas. So if you are a team of students out there, if you and your friends or just you have an idea for something that could change the world, or at least change a little piece of it that's related to aviation, it could be drones, it could be pilot, it could be air traffic control, whatever it is, please apply for the Pitch Summit. The applications were opened on October 31st. You just scan, it's it's arium.org/pitch. And the top candidates will be invited to Johnstown to pitch to Ben Franklin Technology Partners, UPJ, and our Sharks. So we think 20,000 is the minimum amount of money that's going to be available in prizes for that. And those are exciting things. And finally, here's our website on the right. And if you have any questions, email us. That will pop up. That will pop up an email that will put our email in info@aerium.org.